Hi, I'm Kat and I spent part of my weekend watching Shadow and Bone like everyone else, so let's talk about it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to split this video into two parts, like episodes 1 to 4 and then 5 to 8, so you can like watch one part without watching the other and all of that, and oh, it's going to be a long video. I took some videos while watching, so they will be interspersed in, and then I have all of my notes. So obviously I was excited for this show. I have, you know, read all of the books. Leigh Bardugo has her own shelf here. And I was actually more excited for it than other adaptations of my favorite books because I didn't really care what they changed, well, to a certain extent, because I'm not as emotionally attached to the books as I am, you know, say something like this shelf. I am deeply attached to them and I'm terrified for their adaptations. But these ones, I didn't like how the Shadow and Bone series ended, and you know, I was a bit iffy on the way the Six of Crows duology ended, so I was like, they can change things on the way and I would be fine with that as long as it ends differently. Though it may just end the same, but I won't be as mad about it. Because like, who else despises book mail, but like finish the show being like, I hate TV mail. There are things that he said and did which are much better than book mail, so Archie, the writers of the show, thank you. I have no plan for this video. I'm just going to read through my notes and see what happens. So episode 1. Okay, just finished the Falcon and the Winter Soldier finale and now it's time for Shadow and Bone. It is 8:30 on a Friday night. I am in bed. I am in comfy clothes. I don't know how far into this I'm going to get tonight. It's finally happening. Like, the thing is sitting right in front of me and I'm still, like, it's not hit me that it's here. It's real already. So initial thoughts? I have decided that I'm going to give TV show Mal a chance. Like, it's only fair. I like Archie. TV show has obviously changed some things, so maybe he won't be as bad. But the second he goes into, Alina, you've changed. I don't like this you, or anything like that, I'm done. And yeah, that's all my thoughts just going in, like, head empty, Shadow and Bone. My Netflix homepage, they already know what I wanted to watch. Let's go. How many episodes is there? 8. Let's do it. It's happening. I like that opening. Episode 1 down. I have a lot of notes because I've just been writing like all of my thoughts. That was enjoyable, but like not a lot happened. Alina mentions that she's never been welcomed. She looked like her mother who looked like the enemy. So they were bringing the shoe stuff in right away. So it sounds like they explained, you know, like different countries better than different Grisha. Gotta get used to that. Already on a tangent from my notes here, but I didn't notice until like episode 4 when Jenna from Just a Little Bit Random said that she didn't understand any of the Grisha like orders because she hasn't read the books. They didn't explain that and I didn't realize because I already knew, so it just made sense. But yeah, they could have done a better job of explaining the Grisha orders and all of that. Leigh being an executive producer, I got emotional with that. And then they get off the thing and see the fold and a random soldier's like, I bet you Mal isn't afraid of the fold. And my instant reaction was Mal. And that was just, it just automatically happened. I couldn't stop it. But my notes say I gotta work on giving him a chance. And he worked with that chance. The orphanage looks nothing like I imagined. I imagined something a little less big or something, but I guess it makes sense because the guy who owns it is rich. I forgot her name, Anna Cura something, the orphanage woman calling Mal out on hiding and that he has to not hide, otherwise he's not going to be like a man. Oh, Mal ring fighting at the beginning there, that was interesting because it's saying that he's been doing it the whole time and he didn't just start it because he was getting pissy at Alina in later books. So we didn't circle back around to that though, so maybe we will in future seasons. But that was interesting. I was like, Mal is ring fighting already. And then, yeah, they arrived differently to the camp, because in the books, Alina and Mal are walking along together until they get there. This time they arrived separately and they just happened to be assigned to the same unit. Which, I mean, not a change that actually changes anything, but that was cool. Alina mentioned Ketterdam, so we're already starting to make sure like people know that they both exist here. Alina about the skiff. That looks new. Yeah, it looks new to me too, because it's nothing like I imagined, but it's cool. I mean, that's a running theme here. It's nothing like I imagined, but cool. Dubrov and Mikkel, I was like, these guys just sound like some lads you'd meet down at the pub. All of the signs everywhere that are in Ravkin, is that Russian? I couldn't really tell, but I just really want to know what they all say. Apparently I've been saying all these place names wrong. That is another recurring theme. They would say something and I'm like, what? Okay. Like, and then my next one is Mal Oretsev. I've been saying Ortsev, Oretsev. Cool, and then they changed it that they didn't already have plans to go through the fold. Mal got assigned and then Alina follows him somehow. Not a change that actually changes anything, but okay. Meanwhile, in Ketterdam, and then my first note for Ketterdam is, fuck that wink. Jesper. Jesper. I love Jesper. Like, I already liked him in the books, but now I love him. Kaz is done with everyone already. Yeah. And then my next note is, are they aged up a little? Because Kaz doesn't look 17, because the actor himself is like 28. But I'm assuming everyone's just aged up a little. Okay. And then my note here was, this job has them going across the fold, but they don't know about Alina yet. And then I know I have a note about this later. Like, you don't find out until like episode 2 that they're in different timelines to begin with. Like, the Crow stuff is happening 2 weeks later to begin with. And I was so confused for a bit, because I was like, why are they going across the fold if they don't know about Alina? Because we hadn't seen Alina's stuff yet. That would have been nice to know earlier. Because I sat there and then in the second episode they come across Alexei and he's like, it's been 2 weeks. And I'm like, what? It's fucking Witcher all over again. Camera battery died, so I went and watched the Shadow and Bone after party, and now I am back. I love that cast so much. And Ben Barnes had a stack of the Grisha books behind him. Loved it. Now, where the hell was I? Kaz saying to Inej, she's not like you, no one is. Setting up that ship early. Then Mal going to steal food from the Grisha tent. And then me, like, immediately when he got to that tent, I was like, Zoya! And then she appeared. But then he, like, leaves. And then he goes to Alina. And then, you tumbled with the Grisha? No, I just flirted with her. So, did they not? Because, like, Zoya says something later, but I think that may have been just to get a rise out of Alina. But so did Mal and Zoya not happen? Because if so, I have more respect for both of them now. And that makes TV Mal even better. But tell me what you think. Did they or didn't they? Because I think they didn't in the show. The sequence where the crows are gathering intel and they're each interviewing a different person, that was cool. It looked cool. Each of them like shared responsibilities, and I loved that. It looked so cool. Why don't they just go under it? Why did we never think about going under the fold? Like, Jesper just spitting straight facts here. Like, why didn't they just go under the fold? And then Kaz says something about, like, they heard them. But surely, like, if you can get on a train through, you can just go under the ground. We get the briefest flash of the Darkling, and he has spurs on his shoes, which I found kind of funny. But then I was also like, I could never have spurs on my shoe, because I'm currently like sitting on one of my feet right now. Like, the way I sit is just not conducive to wearing spurs. We had a bit of Pekka Rollins. I imagined more green, but I don't think he was wearing green. Then they talked about a heart render at the Orchid, and I was like, oh, Nina's there already. Wasn't Nina. Like, we'll come back around to it, but Nina's story just being like very different to where she was, because she's not like there during like this big war thing, so she's going to be set up quite differently by the looks of it. Alexei, when Alina's like talking about trying to get her to the phone, and he's just like, and I'll be here.
And I'll be here the whole time. Me and the cartographers, I mean.
Alina burns the maps of the West, so they have to get cartographers to go. Makes sense, but the second she did that, I was like, oh, Alexei, go and die. The Inferni that was on the ship, and she was like controlling everything, I liked her. So of course she died. And then the They go off into the fold, and you just see Alex on the docks just staring moodily at it with his cape in the wind. Dramatic.
This. What is happening?
And yes, I will be referring to the Darkling Alexander as Alex through this because I just wrote Alex in my notes because it was easier. Did that Inferno I like just die? It was Alexei. Okay, Alina, go for it. And I was like, imagine if Mal had died here and how different that story would be. You know what? I think I've actually might have read a fan fiction about how different that would have been. And then Alexei comes running out and I was like, Alexei in Novosibirsk. I don't know how to pronounce it still. And then he's getting interrogated and Nej gives him water. Love a Nej. Some device detonated. So none of them knew it was Alina to begin with, and then they get it out of Alexei. Zoya was on the skiff and she came across Mal and Lena, and I was like, oh, she's helping Alina. Like, is she gonna be much nicer in this? And overall, she was nicer. She like still had her bitchy moments, but I don't think we're gonna go as much to like head-to-head bitchiness war. Like, we didn't get much of that. And then the episode ends with that guy going like, now bring me Alina Starkov. Everyone wants Alina. So episode 1 was just kind of all set up and visually gorgeous, and then episode 2 seemed like more setup and was also visually gorgeous. Like, nothing really started going until like episode 4. So episode 2. Episode 2 down. I was way too excited about the Darkling cutting that Virgin in half, but like, I wanted to see it, and it happened. And you know, we finally saw his face. They were building so much up to it. We're like, we already knew what he looked like because, you know, you showed us before. Still waiting on Nina though. They have the flashback back getting tested by the Grisha, and that one was interesting because like we get like half the flashback. We didn't know that to begin with. And I was like, oh, so they just didn't get tested at all to begin with. And I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense, because then it was just like her power was never activated, she never came across it or anything. But then we come back later to like more of that flashback, and then they do get tested, and then like she suppresses her power. But I was kind of excited about the prospect of her just not having to have suppressed her power for Mal. Like, I would have been fine if she just hadn't been tested to begin with, because then it's more like she just wasn't discovered, not she almost was discovered but then suppressed it for Mal. That was what always bugged me, is because she wasn't using her power because of Mal. That young girl, there were some angles where she looked exactly like Jessie, and I was like, casting on point. The whole build up and reveal to seeing Alex's face, and I was like, excuse me? We get such a build up to seeing his face because he was like, we know what he looks like. You gave us stills and you gave us trailers. Why was this such a big moment?
His eyes. Like, I know that they're meant to be black, but I don't know how I feel about this.
And then, you know, Alina showing immediate attitude to him. Loved it. Oh, and then she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, and then he does like the same little head shake imitating her, and I was like, oh, I love that little moment. Oh, then let there be light, and there was a majestic soundtrack, and I was like, oh, the sun summoner. Oh, and then my next note is, oh fuck, Archie actually making me feel bad for Mal. Like, Archie did so well, like making me feel things for Mal. Oh, Inej and Kaz both stealing Jesper's shots. Like, Jesper orders one and Inej drinks it instead, and then he orders another one and then Kaz comes up and drinks it. I loved that, just like the friendship dynamics. Never make decisions out of fear, only out of spite. Should probably start taking that to heart, because like there are so many people I could spite if I like made decisions to spite them. And then my life would get so much better probably. The conductor. The conductor was an interesting character because like the whole train across the fold thing doesn't exist in the books. And that just kind of seemed easy to go along the fold. Like, why weren't there roofs on the skiffs to begin with then? And then like everyone's being like, the conductor, he's like got all these inventions and he can get across the fold and he's like crazy and stuff. Sounds a lot like Nikolai. So now, like, so if we end up getting in season 2 like Nikolai's contraption to go across the fold, that's not going to be as amazing now because the conductor's done it many times. I really want a corporalikai. God, I can't pronounce that. Kefta. I want a heart render kefta, like the red with the black. I would really like one of those. So Hot Topic, can you go and release like a Shadow and Bone line like you have with everything else? Mal running after Alina, there were some feels there. Can't deny it. Mal, it's not like she's a real Grisha. Zoya, soldier, she is one now. Zoya just like being on Alina's side even if she doesn't particularly like her. And then it just seems like, yeah, they took away any romantic entanglement between Mal and Zoya. Jesper saying love. Just a British, like any like British accent just saying love. I need you to kill a man for me. Why me? Just Jesper, I love him. Fedor, he was fun, he was interesting, but also why was he the only one with like a Russian accent? Like I think it was Russian. He wasn't English like everyone else. That threw me a little. Still loved him. But yeah. Oh, the Fjorgen attack. I was sitting there being like, okay, is Alex gonna show up? Come on, let's do it. Let's cut him in half. Let's do it. And then like it didn't seem like it was gonna happen. And then, you know, Alex comes along and cuts him and I was like, oh, just his arm. Oh yeah, because it just, whew, like it went like this. It's like, okay, yeah, he did that. I was kind of just way too excited about that because like I knew it was coming. And the darkness rising when he showed up and his cape was waving and stuff when he like, yeah, walked in, I was like, it's really giving me Agatha Harkness vibes. Yeah, the Fjorgen calling Alex the Darkling. And I was like, this is the first time we get someone saying Darkling, and it's not even in English. And then Alex and Alina on the horse together. How did we all feel about the switching between the two different groups? Because I was getting kind of annoyed with it. It was the whole multiple POV things, which I get annoyed about in like books as well. I'm like, no, I am invested in this. Can we finish this scene first and then we can skip over to here? Because it ended up being like a bit later on that the more interesting stuff was happening with the Shadow and Bone crew instead of the Six of Crows crew. And I was like, can we just watch this? Like I would be happy to watch all of this and then get a full-on Six of Crows thing later. But I also get why they included the Six of Crows guys earlier, because they're like, that's got the bigger fan base, so people might not watch it if it's just Shadow and Bone guys. So I understand it, but just the switching between the two so often was getting on my nerves. Being on a horse in the middle of nowhere, though I really would have liked to have seen them like in a carriage together. I mean, I don't think we ever got them in a carriage alone together. We didn't get that. I really wanted that. You were Grisha. You were not alone. Imagine what her life could have been like if she had been discovered as a Grisha when she was a kid. I have read a fanfic about that. The Sancta Elisabetta thing on a Nej being like the actual thing that's in the book, and this showing up in like the next episode or something as well. That was exciting because like this is exactly what was in there. And I like that they actually gave us like an actual prop replica before the show came out, because that was cool just seeing this. I was like, I have that on my shelf. Yeah, Sancta Elisabetta, like this is the picture that was on an edge, and I was like, that's exciting. The little palace, that didn't look like anything like I imagined. Like it was very white. And I was like, I always imagined it brown. Is it described as brown in the books? Because I only had images of like a brown building, and then a little later we do get some brown, and I was like, that's it, that's what it looks like. But all of like the white stuff and the stone and the marble, like that is not what I imagined. It still looked cool, which following the theme, but not what I imagined. The music playing at this point, which when she's just coming up to the little palace, is the Grisha theme music that they played during New York Comic Con last year. And then she ends up in her room alone crying, and then that calls back to the last episode where they were talking about what they had learned from Anna in the orphanage, when they're like, save your tears for when you're alone. And it's like, that was a nice callback, though I want to give her a hug. Jubrov and Mikhail trying to talk some sense into Mal. I liked those guys. And then the multiple scenes of Alina and Mal lying next to each other and then imagining that they're lying next to each other, I was like, why are you trying to make me ship them? And then we end with Alina at the little palace and into episode 3.
But like, I like this.
just finished episode 3 and the show is still just visually gorgeous, and I love just picking up on like little things and like looks between people. Casting for Bagra and the priest guy on point. 3 episodes in, I still don't hate Mal, but he wasn't in this episode, so I don't think I wrote this in my notes, but we didn't get to see a lot of Alina training like in the books. Like, we only get like one scene with the training guy. Oh my god, I can't even remember his name because he was in one scene. But like, we don't get to see her learn to physically fight, and we only see a little bit of her with Bagra. But I would have loved to have seen her like learning to fight and interacting with all of the other Grisha, because we only got one scene of them at dinner too. Like, we didn't get to see Alina like mixing up the status quo and them sitting at different tables instead of being separated. I'm kind of sad that we missed all of that like bonding and her like learning to and her becoming friends with the Grisha and all of that. We skipped that, and we could have had more of that if we had less of the crows, because we had to cut out a lot of Grisha things to focus on crow things. The episode 3 intro with the music and the crows, that was cool. I liked how every intro was different and it focused on like a different thing. So this one was about the crows, and then we had the one with the fire, and the one with the water. The fabricator one, which I made a note about later, was really cool as well. Cool. Alina dreaming about the stag. So she's dreaming about it and she hasn't even been told about it yet. We meet Genya. Yeah, Genya being like Genya's little smile after Alina calls out the servants. She's already proud of this girl. Random thing, Genya hands Alina a like hand mirror while sitting in front of a big mirror, and I was like, she couldn't just use the big mirror. Oh, and then we get to see Nina for the first time. Nina's backstory is being rewritten a bit. She's still so she ends up being a spy for the Darkling, and that's why she's not like at the little palace. But now she's never gonna report back to the Darkling, and she's just gonna go straight to the crows. Like, Nina and Matthias's story was probably the one that was the most different, like in terms of like how they met and everything, because Matthias wasn't even with other Druskelli. So that whole thing was interesting, and they'll probably end up at the same place. But yeah, that was different. The veil that Alina was wearing, what was that? That was weird, but also that made sense when you came back around in, I think it was the next episode or the episode after, and it was like a disguising the identity type thing. They kept the line about the Grand Palace being ugly, which the Grand Palace didn't actually seem as opulent as it was in the books, because I swear in the books it was described as being like gold on the outside. This one didn't look gold, but I like that they still kept Alex saying like the palace looked ugly. So the king do be like the worst. And then you had the apparat, like you had the king, and then you had the apparat, and then you had what looked like a prince. Was that meant to be, I can't remember his name, Nikolai's older brother? Because that guy looked like 15 and he had no lines and he didn't interact with Alina at all. Was he meant to be there? Like, so was that meant to be him? Oh yeah, and then they had like the whole darkness and the light thing, which I loved in the trailer. And then he ends up holding her hand, which, oh, like, I know it's all manipulation, but anytime they interacted like that, I was like, oh my god, I love it. And then Lee just looks so happy. Oh my god, I love this so much. It's a hug creation, and oh my god, I love that. Lee got to hug Alina. Okay, and then I have, okay, Zoya is gonna be a bitch, but we only got like 2, maybe 3 bitchy things from her. And then my next note, why does he have a goat? Little did I know. Milo, MVP of the whole show. Matthias, we meet him, and then his hair is already short. So we just gonna not do the whole like Druskelli have long hair thing, because like I knew the actor had short hair and in the stills he has short hair, but I was like, okay, this happens after his hair gets cut. So I would like justice for Matthias's long hair. Thank you. And then Alina starts with the blue kefta. Like, that was an interesting choice, like not having the black versus blue kefta conversation. But you know, I guess we're speeding things on along here, so we can do that. And then we were like skipping the whole like wearing black because ownership thing, because in the books the Darkling is so adamant about her wearing black. But that didn't really happen. Like she does end up wearing black later, but that's like more of her choice and stuff. And then he ends up putting her in gold in the last episode. I think there's less of like an ownership thing overall as well, which I guess is nice. Like the Darkling still wants to like have Alina's power and stuff, but there's less of like, she's mine, like those type of obvious type things. And then even Mal had less of like an ownership thing over Alina as well. He was like later on, he's like, you don't have to explain anything to me. And I was like, yes. Marie and Nadia, I loved them. We'll circle back around to Marie later. And then they both said like, at the same time, combat training. And I was like, oh, I love this. Oh my God, let's see combat training. And then we never got combat training. Alina immediately picking Zoya to fight so we can get that like dynamic between them, which would have been good if we explored more. And then I made note of their training in their kefters. They're gonna get so dirty. Yeah, I was like, why are they still in their kefters? But you know, they don't train a lot in the end, so. And then Zoya made a comment about sleeping with Mal. Don't think it happened. I think that was just her getting a rise out of Alina. Nadia having a crush on Zoya. That was fun. Because then we've set up that Nadia likes girls. So when Tamar shows up, the apparat shows up, and yeah, he gives me the creeps, so good casting on that one. The Lives of Saints, that was there, I liked that. And then the apparat saying, I think you will suffer more, and Alina's face being like, what are you doing? No. I love that. Agra's heart being turned into more of a cave, that was a cool design choice, but then ended up being like a bigger room than I thought it was going to be. Solid casting for Bagra. The train thing through the fold is hilarious. This guy is as crazy as Nikolai. Yep. We get a dinner scene and I was like, oh, the dining room is much more fancy than I imagined, because it was also not brown. I was imagining a lot of wood. And then the food gets put down in front of Alina and I was like, no herring? And then there's a taste tester. And the taste tester was such a mood. Like he like takes it and he's like, delicious. You'll be happy with the meal if, you know, I survive. He was fun. How to say inferni, because I've been saying inferni and then they say inferni. Ivan, why are you here eating figs? You should be training. Like, fuck off, Ivan. She needs food. Like, if she's training, she needs to eat, and it's dinner time and she's just going where she's told. But also seeing her train more would have been nice. Apparently I'm a little bitter about not seeing them train a lot. Like, I didn't know this until right now, but yeah, I would have liked to have seen them train more. And then the crows are on the train thing through the fog. It's not bait, it's for you. Hug the goat. Shut the hell up. Milo. And then Jesper does his like, he's holding the goat and then he ends up shooting all of the Volcra. Just, I love Jesper and the goat. That was a good inclusion. And that was the end of episode 3. Let's continue my ramblings with episode 4.
Episode 4 down. So we had a major book reveal just casually thrown in there. And then the rest of it was just me being like, I actually feel bad for Mal.
Mal is walking along and he sees the graffiti about the sun summoner like on the wall. And then they put English translations, but like not down the bottom as a subtitle. It was just like on there, like telling us what it says. And I was like, this is a bit weird. Like, if this had been like a video just put onto YouTube, sure. But that's actually part of the show. So is Mal like imagining the English words next to it? Like, would have been fine with just a subtitle down the bottom. And then there's like Jenya offering her the trim of black on her kefta, and she didn't end up wearing it. So I guess that was the only like fight against the black that we got. Please call me Alexander. Please call me Alexander. What the fuck? We had to work so hard for that reveal. And we just get it in episode 4 casually in front of all these servants? Is his name not a secret now? I literally had to like get up and go for a walk. We had to wait so long for that reveal. And it was such a big thing. No one was meant to know his name. Just casually throwing it out there now.
Please, call me Alexander.
What the fuck?
Like, I guess the reveal for his real last name hasn't happened, but it was just so casually. Why was Alex cleaning out the fountain? That was weird. Like he's just having a conversation with Alina and he starts like taking sticks out of the fountain, and I was like, why do you have servants for that? Okay. Oh, and then we got to see like part of the backstory about the fold playing out, and then later on we get to see that whole thing. We'll come back to that. And then the famous line, "You and I are going to change the world." Could you imagine Ben Barnes saying that to you? Be like, yes, whatever you need me to do. Kaz in a beret. That was funny. That's the whole thing. And then I made a note about the usage of color throughout the show, because each of the Grisha orders have a certain color. It's like, okay, that's gonna be interesting how they use it elsewhere. Like maybe they'll refrain from using certain colors on other characters. But they didn't. Like there was black everywhere, there was red everywhere. I don't think there was a lot of blue or purple elsewhere, but they didn't refrain from using those colors elsewhere. And I thought they were going to a bit, like I imagined people in more browns and beiges to separate them from the Grisha, but they didn't do that. And like they all looked damn good, but it was just a surprise. And as evading the guard, she's literally like standing right behind him and like following him. And in my head, it just popped up as ghosting, which is not, it means nothing about leaving someone on red. For my Aussies, if you remember back in the day, Hamish and Andy, their ghosting competitions, which was about literally just like following right behind someone and seeing how long it took them to notice. That's what I was thinking about with Hamish and Andy. The Darkling mentioning Nina, that was fun. And then we learned that Nina is working for Alex. Apparently I'm just using Darkling and Alex interchangeably now. Then Fido was tasked with finding Nina, and it seems like Fido and Nina might have a past together because he seemed to care about her a lot. And I want to know more about that now. Well, Matthias bringing Nina food, and he's already taking a liking to her. And like if you read the books, you know where they end up and stuff. And I was just kind of sad we didn't get to see more of the build-ups of any relationships, because at this point we're flicking between like 3 different storylines. I just really wanted to like focus on them more. Like we just check in with Nina and Matthias and they get closer and closer each time, and then they end up like laughing later. But we don't get to see the in-between bits for how they properly built up to that. We only get like little snippets, and I wanted more. And then the same thing, like with Alina and the Darkling, like they have that build-up of the relationship, but we don't get to see much of that build-up. We only get little bits. So it almost felt like we didn't earn that. Inej end up dancing with the Silks, and now they're going as part of like an entertainment troupe to get into the little palace, which classic like fantasy storyline. And then Alina just like sneaking around at night, and then she just ends up in the war room with Alex alone. I would have liked to have been in that scene a bit longer as well, to see a bit more of a build up. And then the darkness creeping up with him every time he feels emotions, that was cool. And like it was a manipulation, but damn, he was good about it. Is there anyone out there who didn't know he was manipulating Alina the whole time? Because I would like to know how you felt about it. Oh damn, Mal just stabbed a guy through his hand and right into his heart. Like there was a lot more like obvious gore in this than I thought we were gonna get. And then like, but yeah, just the hand and then right through the heart. That was cool. And then I have, are we supposed to be worried about Mal dying here? Like, I wasn't worried about any of our main characters dying, because we know that they're coming back because we have more storyline. Oh, and then Alina asked for Jenya to remove her scar, and I was like, ooh. Oh, and then Dubrov and Miguel died. I was like, guys, so early. Now you're dead. Oh. And then I have, oh, I'm actually sad about Mal trying to make his way to her and her not knowing. Yeah, that whole thing, like Mal, like we actually got to see Mal trying to get to Alina, and then we see Alina not knowing that Mal's trying to get to her, and then being like, oh, she doesn't care. That juxtaposition to see both sides of it was cool to see, because we don't get that in the books because it's all from Alina's point of view. And then here episode 4 ended and we were halfway. And like, I feel like not a lot actually happened in the first 4 episodes. Like more of the action happened in the second half. This is going to be the end of my first video. There will be a part 2 because I've been talking for a long time and my camera battery is going to die, which is why I'm talking so fast, so I can try and beat it. But yeah, round up of the first half. The show is visually stunning. I love the entire cast and they seem to care about their characters, which is fabulous. The different storylines was cool, but I don't like that we didn't get to, you know, stay with one group of people for long enough. So we didn't get to see like a whole lot of build up to the payoffs that we're going to get later. I would have liked more of that, but you know, I guess I can read the books for that. And Jesper and the Goat, surprising breakout star right there. Please comment down below what you thought of the first half of this show and give this video a thumbs up, and head over to see the second half of this video, and maybe head over to see what I thought of when we got our first teaser trailer, and see what came true or what's different. Let's see you in part 2.